interwebs, I hope you're all doing well. So I'm just sitting here in my car waiting for my fiance to finish up stuff. So I figured if I'm just going to be sitting here, why not make use of my time? Because everything has to be efficient today. You can never have any wasted time. No relaxing. Yeah, that's a actual workaholic problem that I have ingrained in my brain. But in actuality, the reason that I wanted to film this video while I'm waiting here is because I've been thinking about a comment that one of you all left on my main video over on my main channel that I released last week, where I was discussing my frustration with YouTube algorithm and YouTube in general, and how it's this big mega corporation that is pressing marginalized voices and really just sort of doing a spiral into right-wing ideology, AI slop, easy content that does tend to lean right-wing and all of that stuff, and just expressing how it's affected me personally as well as my larger worries for the platform going forward. And someone made a really good comment, a really thoughtful comment that is something that I've been feeling and trying to express in a lot of my work, but they expressed it so well in just a single comment that I want to share it here and kind of talk about it. So here's their comment. I'm not going to share who it was because they didn't ask to be centered or spotlighted. I'll just share their wonderful comment.
Just watched on Nebula, and I'm honestly glad you'll be producing less content on YouTube. I love your videos, it's why I'm on Nebula, but as a viewer, I've noticed that you and all my faves get stuck in a feedback loop with the algorithm. Videos like your ones on Matt Walsh get the most views, which keeps you afloat, but your more artistic endeavors barely get any traction. Which means every couple of months you kind of have to make videos which center around right-wing dingbats every once in a while to keep the channel relevant. Even though as a viewer I initially showed up because of that type of content, and videos like that challenge my own white supremacist viewpoints, it's become draining to watch 4 hours of video essayists debunking the same talking points over and over. And I am starting to realize that by watching these videos, I am training my personal algorithm, and thus my own opinions, to center white supremacist talking points. A leftism based entirely on debunking the right is not a very robust leftist ideology and does not possess the tools to do anything other than yap about the right. And I'm done caring about what the right has to say. I think and know video essayists have the ability to create media that inspires the creative thinking which creates a more robust leftist ideology. Your videos which center queer joy are some of my favorite pieces of media ever. I wish those brought in the big bucks like your videos on Matt Walsh do, but the algorithms and viewers just don't watch those nearly enough. Unfortunately, I don't have the money to join a single video essayist Patreon. I just can't justify that kind of spending, which is why I use Nebula. But know that there are many people in your audience like me who actually encourage you to take more space from YouTube if it means you will make content centering your and our joy, filling us with hope rather than despair. And then he goes to compliment identities, which I won't go into here because it's not the point of this video, but thank you, I appreciate that.
So I love this comment because it's something that I've been really feeling a lot lately. And I think a lot of us probably have too, of this idea that a lot of leftist spaces, especially online, but even not, tend to, and when I say leftist, I mean leftist as opposed to liberal, like sort of Democrat, sort of capital L liberals. It tends to center debunking right-wing talking points. A lot of the time, and I think these are really great videos. I see wonderful videos that like started off BreadTube, like ContraPoints, or Harry H Bomber Guy, or a bunch of other folks who got their start taking down right-wing assholes. And even I myself, like some of my best videos are taking down J.K. Rowling's talking points or Matt Walsh's talking points. And it's those videos do well because our economy thrives on antagonistic content, right? Like takedown content. You can take down this person. We got them. Our society likes these individualistic takedown types of things. But even when we start speaking more systemically about larger issues within our world today and sort of like generalize it out more and not just talk about like the Elon Musks of the world, but even talk about billionaires more generally, we often still center these right-wing talking points. We often center ideas around white supremacist talking points. We're often centering around what they are dictating the conversation to be. Like Matt Walsh or whoever gets to say whatever he wants about trans people, and they get to dictate then what I'm going to be talking about as a trans person, pushing back against that. And this happens in all sorts of fields, especially online. And I'm seeing it more and more become a frustration, I think, with a lot of people. I'm a big nerd, so in nerd spaces, I see people frustrated frustrated with the constant like talking about white supremacist talking points, where they're getting angry about Star Wars The Acolyte or Lord of the Rings of Power, or whatever video game that they're upset about doesn't make a woman look super sexy in sort of a stereotypical Western view today. Hell, the recent one was like they did the woman in Silent Hill who was an abuse victim in that game wasn't sexy looking enough to them. Whatever. They always just show that they're tourists in these spaces when they start talking about that stuff, because it's clear they don't actually know the content that they're talking about. But regardless, we are centering their points of view in these discussions, and as a result, it always allows their discussions to become the center point of view. And it's why we continue seeing that Overton window shift, even within leftist spaces, because leftists tend to just are arguing on those points instead of trying to talk more humanistically and try to push forward alternative ways of thinking and try to teach people alternative ways of thinking about the world. I think one of the biggest frustrations that I encounter when I try to talk to people in my real life, where I'm trying to explain like my views as an anarchist or just general leftist ideas, or even like socialist ideas and things like that, a lot of them tend to just sort of like bounce off of it because they're sort of trained to think a certain way about how, like, oh yeah, well, you know, that's nice, that's kind of utopian thinking, but like we need to be focused on like elections, or like that's more realistic, or you have to live in the real world. Like those are the comments that I get, and I always get frustrated because I'm trying to explain I do think these things are realistic. I actually think it's very realistic to try to go into your communities and try to build things like maybe making free schools, or even building like ways to make direct action to raise money to help homeless people, or, you know, whatever. There are tangible things that you can do. And I think those things are much more important than, you know, the election. Not to say that the election isn't important or anything like that, but these things are much more tangible and will long-term mean more. Because things like, you know, even when we talk about the elections in the United States is a two-party system. And it's always about kind of debunking the other side's point of view. And it's why you see things like the Overton window shifting with Kamala Harris, like saying, I'll have a Republican in my cabinet, or I'll have a Republican on a board. And, you know, there are people saying like, well, this is just what she has to do. She has to cater to these points. And it's because you're seeing the Overton window shift because she sort of sees like, oh, these are the talking points that we're centering on, so I need to try to address them and make them legitimize them within my base that trying to get to vote for me. Thereby, I sort of have to sort of give them some credence. And it's like, no, in actuality, you don't have to. You don't have to frame it in that antagonistic way of like, oh, I'm going to go even more left. You can talk more tangibly about ways that can actually help people and make a difference to people. And as an anarchist, I don't believe the U.S. as a state and as a system is ever going to really do that. But you can still make that argument within that framework as well, as I just kind of did. The issue is when you try to make those things, the right will try and again frame it in that antagonistic way of that's commie shit, or that's leftist nonsense, or far left, or whatever. And what we have to do, and I think we need to be much better about this, is start working to reject that antagonistic framing. Just not even give it credence. And it's hard because they say such bullshit, and it is very dangerous and dark, and you want to address it every single time. And I think it is worth addressing here and there, but I think we need to get much better about ignoring that framing completely and just being like, here's a different way of thinking about it. Let's talk about that together. And, you know, take out the framing of it being leftist or whatever. If those labels help people understand it or make sense of it, that's great. But at the end of the day, those are very like nebulous ideas that are sort of put within a framework that isn't really meant to enable these ideas in the first place. Instead, we should be talking more tangibly about what is this going to mean for your life? What does this mean that you are going to do? What can you build? What is it going to mean for you? And I think a lot of the answers people will resonate with. It's about building things in community, finding people around you. Our society today isolates us so much, and it's why we were able to create antagonist framings, because we've dehumanized each other because we don't see each other in our everyday. And I think telling people like you have chances to build community, to meet your neighbors, to stop being isolated in our suburban homes or our apartments where we don't get to see our next door neighbors or even know who they are. I think that's things that people will resonate with, especially when you get beyond this antagonistic framing. And as a YouTube creator, it's something that I'm trying to think about more and more and more. And it's frustrating because it's like, again, it's like I have to pay my bills. So a video on Matt Walsh or J.K. Rowling will do better in that vein than you know, a video about Star Trek or other things. You know, and when I write, but like that's what I love doing. It brings me more joy. And when I write about Star Trek, you know, I talk about Star Trek a lot in my videos and sci-fi stuff and things like that. But I hope people understand that I actually think that those videos are some of my most political videos. I did a video on Star Wars last year. It's like a 6-hour video. Not all of you watched it, obviously. But that video, I think, is one of my most political videos I ever made. And yet it's about Star Wars. And I think that that's kind of what I need to focus on more. But it won't do the views as it won't get as easy views. Like, there's some people who are able to make those types of videos and they do gangbusters, but for most people, not. And for me, I'm lucky enough that I'm in a good spot with it, but it doesn't ever do fantastically for me. But I think that's the way to sort of teach people. For me as a nerd, I like teaching people about these ideas and these humanist ideals through nerddoms and geekdoms. And I should start talking more about like other sci-fi authors that I love. I talk about Star Trek because even that sort of does well in the algorithm, but like I should be talking more about Ursula K. Le Guin or Octavia Butler or, you know, a lot of those writers who are doing N.K. Jemisin, who are like really actually pushing things like science fiction forward even today, even though many of them are dead. Not N.K. Jemisin. She's fantastic. So I don't know. It's just something I'm thinking about more and more of this wedge in my head of like not wanting always to center white supremacist talking viewpoints, but also paying bills and how our society sort of creates that antagonistic binary and tries to force us to have to live within capitalism. But like when we talk about we live within capitalism, so you have to engage with capitalism, it's not just like, oh, I have to buy things. It's the entire framework of commodification and dehumanization and segmentation and competition that I think is an underlying ideology of capitalism, of colonialism, of imperialism, of white supremacy even, that I think we need to be kind of trying to fight back against as we can, but not center in our discussions and center in what we're talking about as people. And that's a difficult thing to do, and it's hard to do. There's no way to perfectly do it. And I think many things can happen at once. I don't think like there's one way for everybody. Some people, it is good that they fight back more overtly. But I think the fact that tends to be the overriding discourse is a lot of our problem.